I just messed up. Okay, we're live.
So, welcome back,
everybody.
Now chapters 3 and 4 of the APUSH Summer Work Review with
Professor F and E. Okay, so in the second video of the 3-video series, we're going to be talking about chapters 3 and 4. Yeah, we're going to flip that back.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so first, we're not going to talk about anything that's in America. We're going to talk about things that are happening in Europe, which is the Protestant Reformation. If you don't remember, what's his name? Because I don't remember either. He stamped a certain amount of things. Martin Luther, what did he do? He hit a door.
He had a list of
theses.
Yeah, just problems with the church.
Nailed his theses to the church door. Big thing, big movement. Protestantism explodes because, if you don't remember, the Catholic Church had so much power that they were able to do a lot of things, and it became very corrupt. It became corrupt, and they started selling indulgences, which is like, oh, you could buy a free trip to heaven. Of course, people who love their religion, oh my God, of course I'm going to buy a free trip to heaven. And then Catholicism gets a lot of money. Okay, so we talk about Martin Luther. Besides that, John Calvin is another dude, kind of the same thing. He teaches Calvinism, which had, a certain amount of Christian qualities, and Calvinism eventually branched into Puritanism, which were people
who wanted to purify Puritanism. They wanted to purify what they thought was a broken Anglican / Calvin church.
Yes.
So,
no, not. Anglican wasn't broken. They were like, oh, we hated everything Catholic. The Puritans hated everything Catholic. And Puritanism was the specific branch of British Christianity, not the Spain. Again, the Spain were Catholic. The Puritanism was the type of British Christianity that went from Europe to America.
So there were two big things. There were the Puritans who wanted to sort of fix the English church and purify it. And then there were the separatists who wanted to separate themselves from the English church. So they both had very strict ideas, but they were differing. So
can't read that, Brody.
It's fine. You were talking.
Y'all get the memo. Okay. So now, again, this is a time, the colonies have been there for a while. They're going to start to develop their own ideas and their own government systems. Pilgrims set sail on the Mayflower, and they signed the Mayflower Compact, which is an early step towards self-government. Write that down. They founded Plymouth, and if you guys don't know about Plymouth, I think there was a Charlie Brown episode on it. I remember watching it in elementary school. But Plymouth, there was a very harsh winter in Plymouth. Yes, there was a Charlie Brown episode where they were all huddled up and thing.
I have no idea.
Roll the clip. No, I'm joking. We're not editing this at all. But
the first winter at Plymouth was very infamous because 44 out of the 102 original colonists were the only ones left standing, which I don't know the math, but whatever, 102 minus 44, that's how many people died.
A lot of people died.
That's what you should know. 68 people died. And that's not a good sign, especially when you're starting a new colony. But this didn't lower the people's spirits.
No, it made them more united, similar to 9/11 did. I know that's kind of a weird reference, but I just popped in my head. 9/11, even though it was a really bad thing, it ended up uniting a bunch of people together. That's just what happened here. And Thanksgiving, that's where that came from. Survivors celebrated Thanksgiving. Columbus had nothing to do with Thanksgiving. That's a myth. Bradford was their governor. He worries that non-Puritans will corrupt their experiment. That's kind of irrelevant. Now we're going to talk about building Puritan New England. Now, New England, you think of it as this big region, but it started out very small. And New England at the beginning was very Puritan. When you think of New England, you should think about Puritanism. In 1629, the Massachusetts Bay Colony was founded by Puritans. John Winthrop calls it a city on the hill, meaning like this ideal city, this perfect city that other cities should follow suit. The economy, it was, like fur trade, fishing, shipbuilding. They started to gravitate more to the water again because they were kind of evolving separate from Europe. America was evolving separate from Europe. Hard work, community, religious commitment was a big one. when you think about early New England, you should think of Puritanism. You should think of religion, even though it's kind of funny if you think about this. This test is just multiple choice, so you don't really have to think this deeply. But Puritanism was created because the Catholic system got too overpowerful on their lives, and then Puritanism became so powerful as well. So that's just a little side note.
They became what they were trying to leave.
Yeah.
All right, so. Oh wait, no,
Roger
this
Williams.
Is very important.
Wasn't Roger Williams an actor?
No, not an actor.
Sure.
He was. All right, no. So let me take a step back. So we have two very big names who sort of challenged the Puritan authority. There's Anne Hutchinson, who believed that people were sort of chosen by God. They were sort of chosen by God to. They didn't need to follow the laws. They were above the laws. And she also believed that women should read the Bible, which was very against Puritanism at the time. So she was banished from the Massachusetts Bay Colony, and she was picked up by a man named Roger Williams, not an actor, actually someone who started separatism. He called for full separation of church and state. He created Rhode Island.
Rhode Island, yes. So I'm going to draw a graph in a second. I'm going to draw, especially when Pennsylvania comes into play. So there are a bunch of colonies, especially because Puritanism came straight from Europe, right? Straight from Britain. When you think of New England, you kind of think of a more European style of thinking. New England. Oh, yeah. Wow, look at that. But again, this is America. This is a really new place where people are allowed to do what they want. Kind of more free from European,
and that was Roger Williams' idea exactly.
Yes. So places like Rhode Island and Pennsylvania popped up. And we'll get to that later. William Penn, who's a Quaker, that they popped up to have religious, political tolerance. Tolerance is a big thing. That kind of developed into what the American ideology is today.
Yeah, so they had full religious freedom in Rhode Island. They accepted Puritans, separatists, Catholics, Anglicans, and even Jews. They accepted all types of people, which is what made it a very progressive colony for the time. So eventually, more colonies started to come, and they sort of started to unite. So from the New England Confederation, we had the Massachusetts and Connecticut sort of teamed up. I don't know exactly how to describe it.
Like your neighbor. You want to be friends with your neighbor. You don't want to be enemies with your neighbor.
Yeah, so Connecticut in specific, they thrived along the Connecticut River, which gave them very fertile farmland. It gave them fish and very marine life.
Yeah, rivers were a big thing. You'll see it in the Mississippi,
and especially for trade.
Yeah, you'll see it in the Mississippi River later on. That has even more big a deal on trade. That is a way how geography can affect
the development. Yeah,
test, but
it's still good to think about. Yeah,
affect development.
So, and then Massachusetts, and they had this town, is it Ipswich or?
Ipswich.
Yeah, Ipswich, which they were the first town to really go against England. They protested.
Was that Ipswich?
They protested the unfair taxes.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
So they were the first people to come up with the slogan of no taxation without representation, which happens to be a slogan of the American Revolutionary War and is very important in the future. So while tensions are growing between the English and the colonists, tensions are also growing between the natives and the colonists, which is when we have the King Philip's War, where Metacom, also King Philip, for some reason he was called Metacom, he united many tribes, native tribes at the time, against the colonists. So he sort of brought the scattered Native Americans back together for one last rebellion. And it was one of the bloodiest wars in U.S. history. Yep. Literally, it's still, it's talked about even to this day with all the advancements in weapons. It was still one of the bloodiest. And the native power in New England shattered after this. It was a tough loss, but it kind of gave the colonists full control. And it was the last defeat that the natives faced. Yep. So this is where English politics come into play, because after that English Civil War we were talking about, the monarch's power was restored under King Charles II, and he created many laws that he now enforced onto the New World, such as the navigation laws, which were very, very important because it was what started mercantilism, which means that they were only allowed to trade with England.
So again, these plantation colonies, which we referenced in the video before, watch that. You should definitely go watch it before this one, because it's best that you watch them in chronological order. But they were that whole system of plantations was put in place to benefit the mother country, but it didn't work as well for the mother country if they were able to export it to all these different places, because again, that is how capitalism works. England's offering $2, I'm going to offer $3. That's how it works. That's how America made money. But England's like, no, you can't trade to France. You can only trade to me. So since they were only allowed to trade with England, England was allowed to drop the prices a little bit, which didn't benefit America as much. America wasn't able to get as much capital.
This angered the colonists severely. They were not happy with this, and this sort of started. This, just keep it in the back of your mind as tensions start to grow. So that's when we move on to the middle colonies. Do you want to talk about the middle colonies?
I can talk about the middle colonies. So the middle colonies, the Dutch established New Netherlands again, and the Dutch and English were kind of in the same boat on their disdainment of Spanish and what they were doing. They didn't like them at all. So they created New Netherlands, similar to New England, but it wasn't as powerful because the Dutch weren't as powerful as England. And New Amsterdam, which of course is in Manhattan. Governor Peter Stuyvesant captures New Sweden, but later surrendered to England because again, England is far superior.
Wait, New Netherland. What was it? New Netherland.
You got New Netherland and you got New Sweden.
New Sweden.
So New Netherland conquered New Sweden, but the English conquered both of them because you can kind of see the power dynamic. You have the Swedish down here, you have the Dutch over here, and then you have the English as this big, powerful body. And that colony becomes New York. The 30 Years' War was a war that reshaped Europe. Again, Dutch lost even more power. English lost even more. English gained even more power. And again, the 30 Years' War was completely separate from America. It had little to no effect on America at all because the fighting was all going on in Europe. But again, it kind of showed England's dominance. They were able to strut their stuff a little bit. But again, we're going to talk about Pennsylvania now. We have Puritanism in, you don't have to erase that.
I'm going to just write on this side.
You have Puritanism in New England, which is a very religiously country. I should have died.
Alright, we'll just switch off.
Nah, if it didn't...
It'll still pick up. It's fine.
No, but that's annoying if it didn't hear me for a while.
I mean, we'll go back and watch.
Yeah, we will do that.
Oh, no, wait. Oh, is it?
Oh, wait.
You may have clicked the off
Hello,
button.
people?
Yeah, you're back. It's not worth it to check. Just continue.
It's not worth it to check? Yeah,
all right, we'll just quickly skim over it all.
I also said a bad word.
It doesn't matter. Quickly skim back over it all.
Is that not like community guidelines?
No, I know.
I got you.
So just to quickly skim, the Dutch established New Netherlands.
I just died again. It's low on batteries.
All right.
Should we cut the audio? We'll plug this in, and then the last video we'll have it.
No, just switch off.
Yeah. Just finish the video. Okay, fine. We'll finish the video. All right.
So just quickly skim over.
So Pennsylvania. So you have skim
over this stuff.
Oh, skim over. Okay, yeah. So I know. Okay. I'm sorry if you guys are gonna hear this twice, but you have New Sweden, which was Swedish. You have New Netherland, which was Dutch, or the Netherlands, Holland. It's all the same thing. And you have the English, right? You can kind of see what happened is that New Netherland took over New Sweden, and then the English took over all that. That kind of shows a power dynamic that the Dutch were above the Swedish, but the England was this big power all over them.
They all became New York. I don't
know if
you hear me. It became New York. And the 30 Years' War gave the British a lot more power and sort of led to the Dutch losing power, which seems to be a common theme that's occurring.
Yes, and the 30 Years' War did not happen in America at all. It barely affected them. It happened only in Europe. Moving on. Again, we have Puritanism, which was this big thing. A lot of people, again, this was like a new land. People could do whatever they want. A lot of people, they didn't want to be religiously oppressed in any way. So, Rhode Island was created by
Roger Williams
Roger Williams, the actor. And then Pennsylvania was created by William Penn, which was a Quaker. A Quaker is a religious group, but it's not like Puritanism religious. It's not like, oh, you gotta be Puritan, you gotta be Puritan. No, it was very tolerant. It was very laid back. And Pennsylvania, together with New Jersey and Delaware, eventually formed the Middle Colonies. The Middle Colonies, they had pretty fertile soil. They had good rivers for trade. It was all in all a good mix of agriculture and industry.
The Middle Colonies, New Jersey.
You got New Jersey. You got Delaware, which was the first state, and you got Pennsylvania. I'll throw a star on Pennsylvania. That's annoying that my thing died.
It's okay.
It's okay.
And then what'd you say? They were industry and agriculture?
Yeah, they were a nice mix. You kind of go as you see the gradient going. I know I'm not pointing at anything, but as you see the gradient going from north to south, you kind of have more industrial over here and more agricultural over here, and then you see in between there's kind of a mix of both.
Hope you can read that.
Jesus Christ.
All right, moving on. Continue.
Okay. Life in the colonies.
Oh, okay, I'll take over this chapter.
Oh, and again, this is chapter 4. Now, the question of chapter 4 was basically talking about a lot of colonies, and it was saying what colony would be ideal for you to live in. So you could talk about it. That would have been nice. That would have been tough.
All right, so life in the colonies. So I'm going to start off with the Chesapeake, which was a place in Virginia and Maryland, and it was called Unhealthy Chesapeake because of like the unhealthiness.
I'm gonna erase everything. I'm gonna go like Chesapeake.
That's fine. Do what you want. So Chesapeake had many diseases to begin with. They had malaria, typhoid, and dysentery, and it killed many people. And this was very bad because when you're starting a new colony and trying to build up a town, disease is the last thing you want. So the life expectancy was short. Families were fragile, and men outnumbered women 6-1. This created lots of competition for women, and not a lot of people were able to like reproduce and start families. Yeah, thank God. I don't think that picks that up. So if you were chopped like Matthew, you're not getting that. No. So tobacco did dominate the Chesapeake area because, as we've talked about, Virginia and Maryland, they were plantation and cash crop places. So the plantations, they expanded westward.
Wait, have we stopped talking about the Chesapeake?
No, we're still talking about it. Okay. So the Chesapeake, they wanted to expand their plantations westward because they needed more land. But when they expand westward, they interfere with Native Americans and their settlements and their land. So this created even more beef, and it sparked new Native conflicts. So eventually, as we know in the past, they need laborers, and they have slaves, but slaves weren't as popular in this exact region at this time. Instead, they had what were called indentured servants, which is when people from England or Europe would come and serve you as if you're a slave for a temporary period of time. Like,
say in order to earn their freedom.
Yeah, in like about 5 or 10 years, and they would be rewarded with both freedom and land after.
However, in the Chesapeake, again, you see there's lots of disease. The life expectancy is very low. Most people didn't even earn their freedom. They didn't survive long enough to have it.
Exactly. There were harsh conditions that they were being worked through, so many died. And when fewer English farmers come, slavery grows. So this is where tensions start to build even more. So Professor E talked about Governor William Berkeley, who what does it say? He resists fighting natives, and this sort of sparks Bacon's Rebellion, which happened in 1676. I don't know if you had Tim today, but he talks about the major events that happened in 1676 towards the end of class, and I think we're going to be talking about it a lot tomorrow in class, so this part's pretty important. So the poor farmers and the indentured servants, they torch Jamestown. They burn it to the ground. It's their way of rebelling. They're like, we're done with this. And okay, so Bacon's Rebellion was crushed. They tried and they were crushed, and this leads to more reliance on slaves because now there was fear of rebellion with the indentured servants. So they moved on more towards the slaves. So now we go on to the slave culture. So In the 1600s, slavery grew.
Are you talking about New England yet?
We talked about New England. You talked about New England earlier.
No, I'm talking about like in here.
No.
Alright, good times.
Okay, so in the 1600s, slavery grew pretty slowly, but then in the 1700s, it just exploded. So we start off with the Virginia Slave Code, which is low-key the exact same thing as the Barbados Slave Code. It basically said they have no rights, they can be treated as property, and it made slavery lifelong and hereditary, meaning that if you had a slave and they had a kid, that kid was now your slave. So the Africans, they did not assimilate to the New World. They actually brought over a lot of their cultural aspects, one of which was music and dances, which was called, they had a dance called ring shout. They brought food such as gumbo and a very important instrument, the banjo. The banjo gained a lot of popularity, and we could partially thank the Africans for that.
Yes.
So the Africans developed what was called slave culture.
That's why it was like Southern culture. Ooh,
He
that's why it was
predicted.
Southern culture, the banjo, because all the slaves were.
Yes, exactly. I don't know if you heard what he said, but he said that the Southern culture was very similar to slave culture because there were a lot of slaves there, such as the banjo. So now the slave culture, which was sort of the blend of African and like English beliefs. So let me see. Yeah, slaves were super central, super important in the South. Meanwhile, in the North, they were a little bit less popular. So now we go on to families, religion, and society in New England. Do you want to take this? You said you want to talk about.
Well, I wanna,
Oh, you want to write it? All right, perfect. I'll talk.
I
So,
kind of want to talk about.
all right. Well, what you want to do?
No, you're good.
All right.
Oh, the Salem witch trials.
Yeah. So we have the New England like family. This is just a model. The people there, they lived stable lives with stable families, a job, sort of similar to today's life. They had very large families, though. The women, their sort of life goal was to give children.
When you say very large, you say very large compared to the Chesapeake, and the Chesapeake people didn't know their grandparents because their grandparents lived until they're 50.
Exactly. So here, people had like women had anywhere between like 7 and 15 children in their lifetime. From the ages of 15 to 40, their job was to just give birth on repeat, which is not a great job, but it sort of like that was their purpose at the time, and that was like what they were sort of forced to do. So now in these areas, such as like Plymouth, Plymouth, there was a strong sense of community. They built hospitals and schools and churches and sort of actually settled down. They really were big on education in the New England colonies. And then they had the halfway covenant, which it allowed partial church membership. This was new for the time, but it showed the dangers of theocracy and the decline of strict Puritanism.
It showed how even really strict New England Puritanism still kind of adopted an American policy on becoming a little bit more aware and a little bit more tolerant, accepting and tolerant.
So that brings us to the Salem witch trials, which, like, not really.
So, the Salem witch trials. I know with the halfway covenant, I didn't even write that down. With the halfway covenant, that was a good step. See if the camera's pointing down a little bit. It looks to be pointing down a little bit.
We're good.
All right. And Salem witch trials, right? So, again, like crazy religion. Even though with the halfway covenant, like people didn't have to think about it as much, there were still a lot of radicals out there, and religious radicals are kind of scary because they could interpret the Bible or any religious text in any sort of way. So they were like, "Oh my God, witches are a thing," and they would suspect these witches in ridiculous ways. Like someone says, "Oh, she's a witch," then everyone thinks she's a witch. And how they would root out these witches are kind of crazy. I don't know if it says it in here. Not even that. They had to figure out if people were a witch, right? That was the trial, and the way they would do that is, like, an example is they would burn them, or they would attach them to a weight and throw them in a river or a lake, and if they survived, they were a witch.
That's crazy.
But they didn't. But it doesn't matter because they were dead anyway, so it was a lose-lose situation.
Around 20.
Yeah, that's what the witch trials are. Yeah.
So-
The climate, it was a little bit colder than the Chesapeake and the southern colonies. New England's up top, Chesapeake's here, South's all the way down here. But just because it was colder, I know I want to go to college in a more southern place because it's hot. That wasn't really the priority there. The reason why the cold was good is because the cold killed a lot of the diseases that thrived more in hotter.
And also about that, it allowed for a more diverse economy. In the South, they were very reliant on their plantations and their cash crops because it's all they could really do. But in the North, they had rivers and they couldn't have plantations, so they had to develop economies in different ways. So they became very big on trade, fur trade. They became very big on fishing, which led to just a more stable and diverse economy in the North compared to the unstable, very centralized economies of the South.
And guys, I think we're done here. Yeah, I can wrap it up. Yep. So religion, Puritan missions shape New England descent. Williams Hutchinson creates diversity. I'm sorry, Trevor. I just broke your microphone.
Oh, it's fine.
Okay. Politics. The Ipswich protests and the Navigation Acts, which were laws passed on from the British right to the Americas. That again created some sort of tension between the colonists and the Europeans. Economy, again, you have the difference in the plantation colonies than the northern colonies. And yeah, people, that is about it. Thank you for watching. Hopefully we will see you in the next one. I am Professor E, my man Professor F behind the camera. We will see you guys later.